Hi everyone, let's talk about some construction systems for masonry. Here's the same diagram that we've been talking about for a couple of videos. In this video, we're going to talk about specifically the mass wall systems of modular type and specifically masonry. So masonry walls can be divided into two types, solid brick and brick cavity. A cavity is a hole or an opening. There's an air gap in brick cavity walls. Solid brick walls can be single withe or double withe. They can also be double withe with a backup. Brick cavity walls can be double withe or a brick veneer. And I've also put this reinforced, unreinforced tag in there just to remind you that any of these categories can have rebar or reinforcing in them or be unreinforced. So I hear you in there and you're saying, Sarah, what the heck is a withe? Okay, so a withe is basically a layer of masonry. In this picture, we've got two withes, 1, 2. Okay, it's a division, it's a single layer, it's a single section of masonry. So here's an example from your book. We're on figure 319 of a solid brick wall. There's no cavity. Single withe. So there's only one layer of masonry and no cavity. Truthfully, I don't see this particular example out in the real world very often. I have never actually run across it, but you know, I live in California, so there could be a possibility that this is common construction in another part of the country that I'm not familiar with. So let me know if you happen to know where homes are commonly built with a solid brick single withe construction. This one is solid brick and it is a double withe construction. So there is a layer of CMU and a layer of bricks, okay, double withe. And we call this backup because there's the face brick, okay, that's the pretty brick that we see. And then the second withe is more of the structural brick. You probably put reinforcing in there, and it's covered up so they don't make it the pretty face brick. They build it out of the CMU, which is less expensive. Here's an example from your text of a brick cavity wall. Now, kind of by definition, all brick cavity walls are double withe. Okay, they have 2 layers and a cavity in the middle. The cavity is also called an air gap. So the difference in these 3 pictures is the way that the withes are tied together. You want to tie them together every couple of courses by laying either in these examples, a ladder, a truss, or individual ties. Here's another look at some cavity walls. So in the bottom picture here, we have a withe of face brick and then kind of a backup withe of CMU. And you can see that they're tied together. You always want to bond your withes together with some metal ties. And the point of that cavity is, one, you allow, in that gap there's space, you can put some insulation in there, which is useful. And also it can prevent water penetration all the way to the end or the inside of the wall. And that's because the water will penetrate through the first withe and then will fall because the air gap, it will fall down and then we let it weep out of the bottom of the wall. It doesn't actually penetrate all the way to the inside of the building. So here is something you're going to see all the time. This is very, very common, is a brick cavity wall, but it's brick veneer. The structural system in this example is not the brick, it's the wood. The wood framing, it's just the exact same platform framing that we talked about last week, but it's got an additional layer of brick. This is face brick. It is decorative, and it serves the same purpose as wood siding, vinyl siding, other types of exterior finishes. Here's a second look at brick veneer wall. So you'll see the wood stud is actually the structural system of this wall. And then there is an air gap. And then there is a single withe of face brick. Okay? And that brick is tied to the structural system with some metal wall ties. Let's take one last look at the difference between unreinforced and reinforced masonry. So all masonry walls use horizontal reinforcement and metal wall ties if it has two withes to tie them together. Okay, so even unreinforced masonry will have some metal in there. Okay, reinforced masonry, on the other hand, has vertical support. So these are rebar that are placed inside, in this picture, inside the CMU, and then we solidly grout the holes in the middle to secure them in there. So I just went really quick through a lot of different masonry systems, and it turns out there's many different ways you can build a masonry wall. But if you can remember single withe versus double withe, cavity wall, and brick veneer, I think you're doing pretty good at this point. So thanks, and keep learning about brick masonry systems.